Hello everyone, and welcome to my YouTube video where I share with you guys how I found clarity with binge eating disorder and recovered personally. And I could honestly go on and on and on about this for hours. It's something that I am very passionate about because I obviously have such a soft spot for girls that are battling eating disorders because I've been there. I've basically gone through eating disorders on every end of the spectrum, from anorexia to binge eating disorder to bulimia, and through all of that, orthorexia. So I truly care so much about this topic and about helping girls to recover and see hope and know that they're, number one, they're not alone, and number two, there is hope for you and you're not alone, like I said before. So I want to try to make this video as short and concise and simple as possible because, as crazy as it sounds, binge eating disorder is honestly very, very simple, and I think that it has been put into such complicated ways. I guess you could say, like, it's been put into such a complicated state. Like, I don't believe in therapy for honestly any eating disorder, really. I mean, I know there's a lot of controversy over that, and I guess to a certain extent therapy may be needed, but I truly think that anyone can recover from an eating disorder with this tactic. And this tactic goes completely against what therapists say, where they say binge eating is solely emotional and it's based on feelings like depression, loneliness. You binge when you're sad, you binge when you're excited. Just binge eating, sure, I guess it can start from feelings per se, but there comes a point where binge eating disorder is the same on every end of the spectrum for every single person. So I guess let me start by saying what causes binge eating disorder. So firstly, it can be caused by repetitive overeating. If you've just kind of always overeaten, maybe as a child, when you were younger, that can cause binge eating disorder. But the more common one generally in teenage girls like myself is caused by dieting and restricting. For me, I was anorexic and I severely dieted. I was at a very, very low caloric deficit, and that is what caused my binge eating disorder. And restricting can be restricting your calories or also restricting like a certain food group, like categorizing foods as good and bad. That can be a form of restriction. And categorizing foods in terms of macros, like proteins, fats, carbs. People who maybe do like low fat diet, low carb diet, you're still restricting your body and depriving your body of that macronutrient, which our bodies are designed to fuel off of all of the different types of macros and micronutrients that there are, not just one certain macro. And I know that this can also be controversial as well, and there are many people who thrive off of a high carb diet, high carb, low fat vegan diet, or the keto diet, which is high fat, low carb, and that is solely a personal preference. But I think that if you are struggling with an eating disorder or have a past of eating disorders, it's best to stay away from that. But anyway, I think I'm going off track a bit too much, as usual. So basically what happens, I've written this all down because I don't want to forget anything. And like I said, I want to make this as simple as it is and not sugarcoat anything, because there's really nothing to sugarcoat. It's very neurological and brain-based, all of this. And I got most of my information from Brain Over Binge. I got some information from Rational Recovery, and listening to a few podcasts that were based off of Brain Over Binge, Rational Recovery, that same approach. So this information is nothing that I came up with myself. It's all based off of bits and pieces from podcasts, videos, books, whatever. So basically, whenever you are restricting your calories because you're wanting to lose weight, whatever, you over time are going to send a response to your primal brain, which is your lower brain. You basically have your upper brain and your lower brain. Your lower brain is also known as your reptilian brain, your animal brain, your unconscious brain, and then your higher brain is your conscious brain, which is good, does things like actually picking up the food that you're going to binge on. Your unconscious brain cannot do that. Your unconscious brain is what makes your heart beat, what makes you breathe. You're not consciously thinking about breathing while you're breathing. That's your unconscious brain. So whenever you are dieting and restricting, you are sending signals to your unconscious brain saying, like, your unconscious brain starts to go into survival mode because it thinks that you are not getting enough calories, not getting enough nutrients, enough food. So it's going to start to send out survival signals saying, like, hey, I need more calories, I need more food, what's going on, like, danger, this is not good, I need to survive. And so from this point, your animal brain, your reptilian brain, your lizard brain, there's a bunch of different names for it, but your lower brain is going to start to send you cues in all different ways. It'll make you think about food, smell. Whenever you smell food, it'll just cue those urges to binge. Cue, like, you see pictures of food, you're like, oh, that looks so good. You smell food, you're like, oh my gosh, that smells so good, like, I want to binge. It'll make you just want to eat food and send you all these signals dealing with food. I want food, like, that's it. That's all your lower brain is doing, is like whatever it can to send you those signals that I need calories quick, like fast, and in an enormous amount. And so that is what makes you binge. Your lower brain is sending you those survival signals, like, get me food now. So that's what's causing you to binge, and it's your unconscious brain. So generally with this, your mind is playing tricks on you and saying, like, I need to binge, and then you binge, and then after you're like, oh my gosh, like, why did I do that? And that is your conscious brain. That's the brain that, like, wants the best for you, makes your decisions for you, like picking up this pen. You know, that's your conscious brain that cares about you and your motives and your morals and your beliefs and all of that. Your unconscious brain does not care about all that. Your unconscious brain simply thinks it is in survival mode and is like, oh my gosh, like, give me the food now. So eventually, after multiple binges or however many, you are unconsciously conditioning your brain and your body to binge. And when you condition it to binge, you are creating a habit. And it's very simple. I mean, I personally, it has helped me so much to place binge eating under the category of habit. It's solely a bad habit. And whenever you think of it in that way, I think it definitely takes so much of the pressure and weight off of how dramatic binge eating disorder sounds. And yes, it is something that is concerning and should be taken care of immediately, but I think it is oftentimes emphasized to be something so much more than it's not. It really is a habit. That's it. It turns into like an addiction. An addiction is a habit. And all you have to do is break that habit. But I think the best way to do that is to actually understand, like, what's going on inside, why you're having these binge urges, and how to dismiss them and, like, recover from binge eating disorder. So now that you've made this a habit, first and foremost, what you need to do to break this habit is eat adequately, eat enough, stop dieting. I cannot emphasize that enough. Stop dieting. You should be making a lifestyle change, not a diet. That's just temporary. Whenever you make a lifestyle change, you are still fueling your body. You are simply eating foods that are going to fuel you and energize you and provide you with numerous health benefits. That's the very first rule in recovering from binge eating disorder is stop dieting, stop restricting, stop doing all of that, because that is only going to make your urges stronger. That's only going to make things a million times worse, and you're just gonna backslide and probably not get anywhere. So eat adequately, fuel yourself, get enough calories in. I personally don't count macros or calories. For me personally, I just eat intuitively, and I'm still working on that, and I'm really getting into like mindfulness and mindful eating, but I'm all for the intuitive eating. Don't count calories, don't count macros. But if it works for you, by all means, please do it, because this is all about being selfish and figuring out what works best for you. So after you've eaten adequately, you need to learn how to dismiss your urges. So let's say for me, I would always get my strongest urges to binge at night, like right after a long day and I've come home and I sit down and I'm just like, my brain automatically sends me that signal because I've trained it and I've conditioned it to binge every single night. Like at night, I get that urge because it's been conditioned that way. It's formed a habit. So I get that urge to binge. So whenever that urge comes, it's really good to learn how to separate your higher brain and your lower brain, and to realize this urge is coming from my animal brain that's telling me I need to survive and I need to binge in order to survive. Whenever you are eating adequately, you don't need to binge. Like you have to learn how your lower brain needs to learn that. So by doing so, you need to just separate the two, realize that those urges saying like, oh my gosh, like I need to binge, or thoughts like just one last time, like this will be my last time to binge and then I'll start over tomorrow, or I'll start over on Monday, I'll start over on the 1st of this month. Like that's all your lower brain trying to compromise with you to keep binging and to keep that habit in your life, because it thinks you need that to survive. You need to let your brain know that you don't need that to survive. So whenever you get those urges, you need to just separate yourself and say, hey, I know why I'm getting the urge. I restricted, and then I went into survival mode, and then conditioned myself to binge. Like it's just simply a habit, and I need to tell myself, okay, like I hear you, I know you're there, but I don't need you anymore. I don't need to binge anymore. I'm good. Like that's it. Basically, like you can leave. Like you're literally dismissing your urge, and you're not. Sorry, I feel like I'm really scattered just because there's so much to say about this, but you also need to, whenever you get that urge, don't be afraid. I know whenever I would get an urge to binge, I would get so many mixed emotions. I would feel this just like pit in my stomach, like, oh my gosh, but then I would get excited at the same time, and just these thoughts back and forth, and those back and forth thoughts are your two brains, like kind of going against each other. That dread in my stomach, that pit, that is my conscious brain saying, like, wanting the best for me, knowing that binge eating is not going to make me feel good afterwards. Like, it's just not what my body needs. But then that excitement and that urge, that wanting to binge, that's my lower brain sending me anything it can just to get me to binge. So after you learn to dismiss those thoughts, it's going to take time. And I'm not saying that it'll be easy, because clearly I still battled it a little bit throughout like the first few weeks coming to college, but I reread Brain Over Binge, and I listened to so many podcasts and just really dug so deep into the soul neurological part of it. And like, honestly, I personally don't think it has anything to do with emotion at all. I mean, maybe it started off that way, but in the end, everyone's binge eating disorder is now a conditioned habit. So eventually, after you learn to dismiss your urges and keep constant with that and keep doing that time after time again, it varies for every person how long it may take, but that habit, those urges to binge, will soon go away. your lower brain will start to get the hint, like, hey, I don't need this anymore. Like, we'll say myself, like, I'm sending Madeline these urges to binge and like these signals for survival that I need to binge, and she's not like answering back to me. She's not binging, so I guess we don't need that anymore to survive. And eventually those urges will fade away and back off, and in the meantime they will be gone forever. And with that being said, there are still going to be times when those urges will come up. Like, for me, I know, like, during the holidays, that was always a hard time for me, and I know for a lot of other people that is too. Or just like big gatherings with friends and just like surrounded by all this food, like, those urges are going to come up again, and you just need to realize, like, that is not me. That is my unconscious brain sending me those urges, and I just need to let it know, hey, I'm okay, I'm going to feed myself adequately, I don't need those urges anymore to survive, thank you, but I'm good. And that's basically it. I mean, I'm not saying you dismiss one urge and then you're recovered, your urges will never come back. No, they will definitely keep coming back because you've conditioned your brain to binge however often that you do. So you just have to be patient and give it time, but with knowing this, there's honestly no excuse, you know? I mean, like, this is the straight, raw, scientific explanation behind binge eating disorder. Like, it's literally your brain. Oh, and I forgot to mention this. Every time that you binge, pretend like the neural pathways in your brain, you binge, and so the neural pathway that you take to binge is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Like, you keep going down that path, so that neural pathway in your brain is just getting stronger every time that you do it. So whenever you are dismissing your urges, you're learning to rewire your brain. Like, you're literally learning to rewire your brain. Our brains are like plastic. I mean, like, you can rewire your brain. So every time you dismiss an urge and choose not to binge, you are starting a new path, and then that path will eventually get stronger and stronger, and this one that you would take to binge is going to get weaker. So you just focus on making this path stronger and this one weaker. That helped me a lot, is to actually like imagine like literally two pathways in my brain, one for binge eating, one for dismissing the urges, and that helped me so much to be able to actually visualize that. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that's it, and I really, really, really hope that this helps you guys. And if you want more depth, like more in detail descriptions about what I'm saying, if I'm not making any sense at all, sometimes I feel like I'm just blabbing and not making a lot of sense, and I'm so sorry for that. If you want more information on this, read Brain Over Binge by Katherine Hansen. Also, Rational Recovery. Brain Over Binge is kind of based off of Rational Recovery, so I read a lot of parts in Rational Recovery that helped me as well. So that's another book, which Rational Recovery is a book for alcohol addiction, if you didn't know. And but you can treat that. You can treat the same way you would treat an alcohol addiction, you can do with binge eating disorder. Like, it's literally the same thing. They're both addictions and they're both habits. So you can treat them the same way, which is really, really cool. And in the big picture, you can treat any habit you have, big or small, in this exact same way. Like, all you've been doing is conditioning your brain to perform that habit, and now you just need to rewire your brain and say, like, hey, like, I don't need that, thank you, but I'm good, and rewire that new pathway. So I really, really, really hope this helps. And I have 2, I think, podcasts that I can link in the description below, as well as the book Brain Over Binge, that helped me immensely, and that were kind of my backup for this video and like where I got my information. So I can link those below. But if you have any questions, or if you just really feel alone in this, because I know I felt so alone whenever I was battling this, but please talk to me, like, please message me. If you have my number, you can text me, just anything, because you're not alone, and I know how good it feels to be able to talk to someone and relate to them and know that somebody understands what you're going through. So yeah, basically what I want you to get from this video is like, don't look at binge eating disorder as something's wrong with you or as you are diseased or like your brain's not working right. It's actually the total opposite. Your brain is actually super healthy because you're conditioning it and it's sending you survival signals. So your brain is functioning just fine, I promise you. It's just a matter of breaking the habit, and eventually your urges will be gone forever, and I can 100% guarantee that. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. It was definitely a lot longer than I hoped it would be, but that's okay. I just hope that this helps at least one person and that it gives a little bit of clarity to binge eating disorder. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!